you.
Well, welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It is
There they are.
Meatless Monday. Welcome, Buddha 1000. She said, don't forget to hit
We
the like
see
button,
you.
comment, and subscribe. Thank you.
Hey, Buddha, welcome, sweetie. Hi, guys. How are you?
Can you hear us?
Yes, we
We
can hear
can.
you
We can
now
hear you
and
and
see
see
you.
you.
Okay, great. That helps a lot.
Yes, that'll be great. It is so nice to meet you. I've told Dawn this all week. I've been so excited. I'm honored to speak with both of you who have been so instrumental in the vegan movement and helping so many people understand what compassion is. So thank you for being here, both of
Thank
you.
you. We appreciate being on. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, and I want
We've
to
been watching
welcome.
your videos all weekend, and I can tell you, I'm so thoroughly impressed.
Oh,
And I'm really excited to talk to you guys. Jen's been talking about it, and she showed me some of the videos, and I couldn't stop. I was in the middle of because I'm also learning how to trade stocks and things like that. So I'm so into that right now, but I could not take my attention off of your videos.
It was so
Oh,
wow.
nice
thank
It
to
you.
hear
totally,
from
I
you.
lost myself in it. Yeah.
You made our
Everyone.
Oh,
you made our day.
that's so nice.
Aw.
I hope we didn't
Definitely.
lose you any money.
No, 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 no,
Maybe
no.
you saved her money. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right. You never know.
And luckily it was the weekend, so the market was closed.
Oh, good. Good time to watch Gentle World videos.
Yes.
Yes, and gentleworld.org is the website. Is that right? And I know you
Okay.
have some books that you've written, and we'll get into all that in a few minutes. But I will have all the links posted in the description here. The StreamYard wouldn't let me do it on YouTube, so I'll do it right after the stream, so we can make sure that's all in there
Actually,
for
it's
everyone.
Restream.
Restream, sorry, wrong platform, but
Restream
that's
might have an
why
issue with us calling
JJ
Stream now.
Video here is our technical person. Obviously, I didn't even know how to get the picture to show up. So,
Angel is my technical person. I didn't know how to turn the internet on.
well, good. I'm so happy that we made it. All of us collaborating, right?
We made it
So,
happen.
if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got started being vegan and or vegetarian at first, and then vegan, and a little bit about Gentle World.
Do you want to start with that?
Okay, well, this goes back to about 1968
The year.
when my future wife and I went to a movie, kind of a documentary movie, and we saw this was after a bullfight. Four good-sized men with sledgehammers were hitting a bull over the head. Poor creature was screaming, and it was a big bull. It took about, God, I don't know, 20 hits to put him down on the ground, and of course they killed him. So my
Oh,
wife and I came out of the theater and said, "Is that how they get meat?" Well, that's a truth we discovered. We can't just bypass that. We got to stop eating meat. And we stopped eating meat. We didn't even consider dairy. We didn't know there was anything wrong with dairy. We thought that, which, by the way, I want to interject here. When Joaquin Phoenix made that statement, he allowed, I guess, 30, 40, 50 or more million people know the truth of what. See, I didn't know that. My wife didn't know that they take the babies away. That came about 2 years later. We went to rent a house up near Syracuse, New York, and the woman there had cows, and the cow was screaming and bellowing. We kind of thought maybe she was giving birth. It was that kind of screaming. And the woman said, "Oh no, we took a calf away because we don't want to, share the milk. The milk is our profit. But don't worry," she said, you get used to it. She only does that for about 3 weeks, cries and
Wow.
bellows for about 3 weeks. So, well, we don't want to get used to it. How about we put a stop to it? And from that moment on, we became vegan. We thought we'd never have ice cream again. We thought we'd never have whatever, all the things that are dairy. We thought we would just never have it again, but we didn't care. See, it was the first time we knew we were doing something. It was the first time in our lives. I was 29, 30 years old already. And I had never had anything that I was doing that was irrefutable. no matter what I believed, I figured some expert could come in and disavow my thinking, and that would be it. He was an expert I didn't know as well as he or she did. But when it came to not eating or hurting animals, God, him or herself, could come down and say, no, it's okay to kill all these animals and eat them. And I would know that God was an imposter. It was irrefutable. It's still irrefutable. There's no just cause for cruelty, and any more than in the Holocaust in Germany. There's no taking the other side in a debate and making it okay. It's,
Right.
it's a horror. It's a horror Holocaust that goes on for four-leggeds that used to go on for two.
Some on
So
Can
three
I
that's
legs
jump
as
in here
well.
for one
it's
quick
some,
second? Because Jen showed me a video. I had already decided to be a vegetarian, but I still was kind of wavering, and I was still eating chicken. I wasn't on any red meat. And she showed me a video by Gary Yourofsky, and I say this almost every week, but it's so funny because as it relates to the story that you just told, I saw a cow getting punched in the head
Mhm.
repeatedly. That's what did it. That's the
And she's
exact same
never
thing that
ever
did it
ate
for
meat
me.
since.
I burst into tears. I could
Mm.
not stop crying for the cow and for the pain that that cow was going through, and just watching this guy, just for, there was no reason for it. I mean, if you're gonna slaughter the cow anyway, there was just to be mean. I burst into tears and I could not stop crying. And I looked at her and I said, I am never eating meat again. I am not making those people earn any more money from me. It At that point, it wasn't a health thing, it was a principle thing, because I didn't want them to get paid from me any longer.
It's the same thing, like mine started with health issues, but the more I was in the vegan group, or not health issues, but to be healthier, and the more I was in these groups and I saw what went on with animals, and the baby cow thing, just, like you said,
Yeah,
it's why I started to get healthier, but the reason I stay, and I don't, there's no, like you said, there's no cheating, or, oh, don't you just want a burger sometimes, because of the animals, ethically, I wouldn't even be able to think of it. So thank you
that
for.
reminded me of it when you said the way that they were beating the bull. And I'm like, wow, that's the same thing that did it for me, them punching the cow in the head.
yeah. Well, everybody should feel that way. It's uncanny that they don't. Everybody should feel the way you two felt. I wish
Yeah,
they would. When I began, I thought it would take about 10 years. Talk about wrong estimations. I thought it would take about 10 years in the US because it seemed so. All I had to do is tell my friends, this is what happens. But
Mhm.
it didn't work that way. I lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And my parents, they thought we would die because we wouldn't get protein. So my mother used to sneak like a meat gravy in with her. We had to stop eating her food, even though she was a great chef. We
wow.
just couldn't go on. And then it became where we couldn't sit with anybody who was sitting there eating the body parts of an animal. That's when the community began, which back then was called a commune, which was much easier. Of course, people, now they've talked people into doing everything alone, which is, of course, an absurdity. Nobody does everything alone. And we just had to find a way to live with each other, which formed the base. At one time, the community had 35 vegans and
Wow.
many, many vegan dogs to go with it. We still have two vegan dogs. One's on the bed right here. Of course, they're
Oh.
all they're all saved from they're all saved from murder. What they call euthanasia. Interesting, because I always thought euthanasia demanded the acceptance from the person or animal being euthanized. Otherwise, I would think to call it murder,
Mhm.
which is more apt.
And
Anyway, all our dogs come from rescue. Right now, we
Oh.
have two of them. They're kind of sisters in heart. They love each other.
they adopted
Aw.
each other as sisters at the shelter. So
Yeah, we had to take them
Oh,
together. They couldn't
Oh,
separate them.
that is so cool that you didn't separate them.
that is great. I
Yeah,
often
they're
wonder,
very grateful.
People don't
They-
realize animals have those similar feelings that we have. You know, when we look at our pets, they have those little personalities and emotions and person and things. So it's difficult to get people to translate that into the animals that are on their plate sometimes
That's right.
Remember
is the
Christian the
disconnect.
lion?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Love
That
that.
was amazing. That
Love
was
that
Yeah.
amazing.
video.
You tell me animals don't have feelings.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. We always encourage people to watch videos from the animal sanctuaries because now there's, documentaries and things. I don't know if you guys have heard about Peaceable Kingdom, but there are documentaries that show people who these animals become once they've been rescued and when they're allowed to live a life that's where they're being respected, where they're being treated respectfully. And people don't get to see that. They see these images on TV, which is how people want us to see the animals who we farm and how we use them for food. But it's a very two-dimensional image of what who a cow is, or who a pig is, or who a chicken is. There's just as much variety in their personalities as there is in ours.
Yeah.
But they don't
Yes.
want people to see them in that three-dimensional way because that's what allows people to have the blinders on to eat their bodies.
Absolutely.
But when you can see that, when you can actually see, and I'm sure the video that you were just describing, where you saw the cow get punched in the face, I mean, when you see that kind of thing, the reality of who they are, you can see in their faces and in their eyes that they're feeling, they're suffering the same way you would if that
Yeah.
happened to you. The videos are really powerful in showing people this, because once you make that connection, once you realize and awaken to that truth that they feel like we do, it just changes everything. You can't go on, with our old behavior.
The internet is one of the more hopeful things today because, of course, as a kid, I couldn't see slaughterhouses or the mistreatment of animals. I had no idea. But nowadays,
Yeah.
of course, at the push of a button, they can see all that. And it's been a big help in many ways.
Definitely. And I know that you were mentioning that you had saw that with the cow. That's probably one of the most unbelievable noises I've ever heard, because I started this journey, unfortunately, later in life, and I didn't even realize, like, in your mind, the way that it's presented by the media, I guess, or I never really was able to look into it, or never was able to catch one of these videos. I just never really thought that cows are not just, they don't just have milk. They have to have a baby, and they
Right.
carry this baby for,
Right.
almost, I've heard, as long as we do, I believe,
Right.
9 months, and then the baby is taken away from them, and that is the worst crying out I've heard in any of the videos I've seen. So it's disappointing that, for so many reasons, like you said, not only for the health reasons and then for the animal reasons, it seems like it makes so much sense. So when you formed the commune, and that is what became Gentle World at that point.
Correct. Well, we might have had a couple of names in between, but it eventually became Gentle World. Yes. Figure that's what we want above all other things. Look what's going on. They're talking about a third world war with nuclear weapons. What, what's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine they're even considering it, but they're more than considering it. Anyway, I don't want to be, I want to express my being a vegan for 53 or 54 years is to me, even though my estimation of 10 years was far from the target, there's a lot of hope out there. I just heard something about King Charles is making a Meatless Monday in the UK.
Wow.
Really?
I don't know.
I
It might
don't,
just
I don't know.
There he is,
might
Jen.
be for his
He's
palace or
copying you.
something.
Huh?
It might be for his palace, something like that.
Well, I
Yeah.
heard it was, but I don't know. But anyway, if that's true, and all the fact that those fast food, which is an interesting term in itself, the fast food places that have vegan alternative, it's a new world in that way. Of course, it's far from fast enough. Fast enough would have been 100 years ago, but it's
Right.
happening. I want to get that across to young vegans or vegans who are in it just for a shorter period of time, that even though my estimation was way off, I see a great deal of hope in what I see going on. I go into a supermarket when we had to read every in the old days we had to read every ingredient and couldn't understand half of them, and now
Right.
they stamp on it vegan. That's a tremendous change from it was
Where you've seen
total
it.
obscurity. My wife and I thought we invented it. I'm not vegetarian and vegan, being where we got rid of. I want a quick anecdote
Just
here.
tell them quickly though that when they say they thought they invented it, they didn't know there was a word. So at that time there was a word, but there were very, very few people practicing it. So when they decided, they stopped eating meat, they stopped eating dairy, and then one step at a time they stopped leather, wool, silk, feathers.
We did a cute thing with feathers. When we found out about feathers in pillows and things, we were out in Colorado. We took a bunch of pillows up to the top of a mountain. We slit them open and we let the pillows for their last flight. We let the feathers float down a couple thousand feet. It was a
Wow.
glorious sight.
Oh
That is
wow.
wild.
I can imagine.
That is special. That
Wow. I wish it's times like that that I wish that we had cell phones and things that we could have seen that with you
Mm.
guys.
We couldn't even take pictures in the old days because before what they have now, they weren't. It wasn't vegan to
Photographic film
photographic film
is
wasn't
not
vegan, so
vegan.
we missed out on
There's
a
a
lot
long
of
time
pictures.
of the community's history that is undocumented as far as photography goes because it was not vegan to take photos. So
oh, that's
they
interesting.
didn't. They were very, very principled right from the beginning. I mean, like Light was saying, they when they stopped eating dairy, they didn't know there was going to be alternative dairy products like we have now. It's not like they gave up dairy ice cream for all these different ice creams that we can get.
Right.
They just thought they would never have it
Right.
again. But the feeling of knowing that they were doing something that was so in alignment with their principles and values was more important to them than any of that other stuff. So they were just fueled by this sense of righteousness, not righteousness in a negative way, but, feeling filled with the sense of doing what's right.
Right.
So they were happy, they didn't feel deprived or anything like that. They just were thrilled with whatever they were eating, canned peas, canned corn. And then all these years later, now you can get anything you want pretty much. I mean, it's kind of a
Yes.
beautiful
Yeah,
coming around
it's
full
very
circle.
fitting, a very fitting reward. Yeah, we thought we would never have dry cereal again. The first milk we made, by the way, was sunflower milk.
Wow.
Okay.
Back then it was about 35 cents a pound,
Sunflower seeds.
sunflower seed. And we would put it in a blender with ice cold water, stir it up, it turned white, and we would have our cereal again. Of course, that
Wow.
was back then. That was my morning breakfast. Now it's turned into oatmeal.
I love
But we
oatmeal.
still make our own nut milks, and now we make it from macadamia nuts and cashews. And now, of course, they have strainer bags. If people want to make their own milks at home, it's cheaper and more ecological than buying it at the store. And if you have a good blender and you can blend up cold water, a nut or a seed, and maybe a little bit of sweetener if you want, or vanilla, you pour it through one of these strainer bags, and it comes out silky smooth like the milk from the store. So it's kind of like a way,
Really?
yeah, it's a way even to bypass the whole like packaged milk thing and just
Oh wow, Jen, we got to try
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
it's so ironic that you mentioned that today because Mariquita Solis, I hope I said her last name right. I totally messed it up on my stream one time, but I saw you on her channel, which was an excellent interview, and I was on her page today, the Vegan Empowerment, and someone was commenting that they don't like the packaged milks because of
Mm,
all the fillers and things in
right.
them, and someone had posted some recipes to make milk, and I was like, we have got to try that because I love the fact the more like the more you get, or I get into this anyway, it's kind of like a journey where you go from one thing to the next, especially now with
Mhm.
all the products out there. You tend to want to think, okay, I can just get this, and then you realize you really can even conserve even more and make it yourself. So it's
Right.
really a cool journey to be on.
Yeah.
We were just talking about water purification because we all we drink is water. and rather than always getting the bottled water
Mm.
by the case and stuff like that, to just purify it ourselves right at the sink.
Right, exactly. There's lots of different ways to do that. Even those just simple Brita water filters, it's just like a pitcher, you pour it in. Definitely, it's good to save on the all that packaging and going out and buying it all the
Yeah,
time.
because that's not good for the earth either.
Right. It's an evolution. We're always trying to improve and do things better, even on a health level. For us, the bottom line is vegan. We don't want to eat anything that's comes from animals. And that was, you were describing the feeling you had about, seeing the cow get hit in the face and just feeling like, I don't want my money to go towards this. And that was
Yeah.
my big come to when I really became vegan. It was at a seminar, a workshop here in Gentle World, right when I first had met them and was starting to volunteer. And Light's wife's son was giving a presentation on the spirituality of compassion. And she was just talking about, what it does for the individual to allow this to, move us and guide our behavior. And she was talking about the animal industry. Actually, we have her on video saying this. One of the videos on our YouTube channel is Son describing this realization that she had. But when she said it, it just, really moved me and created my own epiphany. That was when I became vegan. And it was just, I can't stop the animal industry from doing what they're doing. They have too much power. I can't stop them, but I can stop me. I
Yeah.
can stop
Yeah.
myself from being a part of it. And once we
She was beautiful too, by the way.
wasn't
I
sure.
watched a video of her, yeah, where you guys were sitting there together and she was speaking. And she reminded me of Jen so much. I said, Jen, wow, she reminds me of you a lot. Just her spirit, you
I
know.
think it
Um,
overall like really strengthens your spirit too because you don't realize just what everything entails. I just feel a lot calmer, a lot
yeah.
more compassionate, since not, partaking in eating animals. And it's definitely one of the reasons we do this. And I thank you for all the people that you've touched because like you said, we can only stop ourselves, but collectively, like you were mentioning, look how well over the years it's evolving. So it's getting better. So that's encouraging to hear that you've seen those changes. And even in the last 10 years, I've seen my grocery store have more products and people are willing to try it, they're um and it's like, how do we get this across to them? And I love the way that Gentle World presents it, to allow people to have that epiphany themselves.
Yeah, that's so important.
It's no less than the hope of this world. It's the hope. I don't know of anything that you could push a button and make everybody in the world something. Either, let's say, all Christian, that wouldn't do it, all Jew, all anything. It's only if you push the button and made them all vegan, that would
Yeah,
change them
right.
all. Because it changes your cells. Literally, it changes your cells. It changes it from throwing trash out the window of a car into getting out and picking it up. It changes your compassion, your empathy. And if we don't change our empathy and compassion, then well, you see what goes on.
Well, just like what
It's
you
Yeah.
hard
said
to
about the
believe.
nuclear war, they can't push a button and turn us all vegan, but they can push us a button and make us all go away, unfortunately, you know?
Which a
Yes.
lot of them seem to want to do.
Yeah,
Make
But
it
it's
yeah,
it's it's driven by the same thing. It's driven by a lack of empathy for others, right? So
right.
that's why veganism is so big, because it's not just about, the fact that it would, change everything for the animals completely, the fact that it would change global warming, the fact that it would change world hunger, just everything. It's the fact that it changes us on the inside into people who
yes,
don't want to prey on others. We don't want to use others for our advantage. We don't want, we're not willing to sacrifice the rights of others for our basic, desires and all of that. So
Yes.
it's such a transformation on the inside that if everybody could go through that, we would have a completely different population and a
didn't
completely
I say
different
that earlier, Jen?
society.
Yes,
We were
you
talking
did.
about that same exact thing. I knew that's where you were going with
Oh,
that. I said, when you eat differently, you feel differently, you think
absolutely.
differently. You're
Yeah.
lighter, you're happier, you're healthier, and you literally feel differently. It's
Yeah.
you're eating from the earth and you are part of the earth anyway, and we all go back to the earth. So when you're eating the things that are from the earth, naturally you're gonna feel in a way that isn't convoluted with all the stuff that man has done.
And all the things that that animal has went through. I've heard
Yeah.
people suggest that that, like you said, gets into your cells and it becomes part of you, that anger and that fear, and it would
You
be
don't
hard
have
to
that like that
explain to
anymore.
someone until you try it,
Right.
until
Yes.
you do it, and it's like you just can't imagine that food could create that much of a difference within you, like your spirit too. And I never really heard a lot about this, and I want to get it out to people, and that's why it's like the way that we do it is so important to help people, at least give them the information they need to make that decision and not have those blinders on.
It's a panacea. People don't like that word, but it is a panacea. It's good for everything, and it's not negative for anything. As Angel just said it, we didn't even know it's good for the environment now. It's good for the animals. It's good for the humans who do it.
Right.
I think the greatest rate of certainly of accidents and suicides are people who work. How could it not be? People who work in that industry, not
Yeah.
doing them any. And of course, it's killing human beings. What else is clogging up their arteries? It's
Right.
certainly not tofu's not clogging up their arteries.
Right.
Right.
That is so
Wow.
true. And
Um,
the go ahead.
oh, well, you were just talking earlier about wanting to have the information to provide to people about that. And there's one excellent book that we recommend to everybody, which is Will Tuttle's book, The World Peace Diet. Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't. I know the name, but I didn't know the book, so I'd love to get that.
Yeah, it's so powerful because he talks about it on a spiritual level and a societal level, but it's basically about how all of this is going on. We try to push it out of sight. We don't want to look at it. So we tuck the slaughterhouses away where nobody can see them and pretend it's not going on. But the truth is there's this horror that is going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, all around the world. Everybody's, I mean, except for the vegans, of course, participating in it. Even if they're pretending not to, they're asking other people to do it for them. Um, it exists as this shadow under the psyche of humanity. And so it's affecting all of us spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. It's like this gigantic, awful secret that we all share.
Yes.
And he just talks about it. It's an absolutely brilliant book. And I think it really helps people to understand the issues on a wider level. So one of the things he talks about is the oppression of the feminine principle, right? And how everything about animal farming is kind of a slavery of the reproductive system. So everything from breeding, the stealing of eggs, the stealing of milk, rape, all these issues that are about the exploitation of the reproductive system. It creates this, again, like there are implications, there are broader implications to that to do with the way that we see and treat women and the way that women feel about their place in society and their place in humanity, knowing that our sisters, our four-legged sisters and our feathered and furred sisters are being treated in a way that is an out and out slavery of the feminine parts of themselves. So, the World Peace Diet, we really, recommend that to everybody. And the other thing I wanted to say is just that it's true that the diet changes us, on the cellular level. But also veganism is so much more than a diet. So I do think that when people take it that extra step, not extra step, but take it to its logical conclusion, which is, rejecting animal products in all forms,
Mhm.
leather, wool, silk, furs, feathers, products that are tested
We
on
actually
animals.
kind of have gone that way with it. I haven't worn leather. Like all of my tennis shoes are like canvas now, and you know, same thing. I don't even wear a belt.
When you
It's like,
realize what they're doing in the food
yeah,
industry, and then truly learn about it, there's so many ways that we're abusing animals, not just
Yes,
food. So it's
right.
scary to think about. And I think, like you said, that's why people don't people aren't genuinely bad people, like when
No,
I
that's
was
right.
before I learned all of this, I did not feel like I was a bad person. I thought I loved animals, and then I realized, wait, I'm just loving dogs and cats, you know and it's such a connection that when you make it, it's like you feel terrible and you just want to tell everyone and you want to be able to help them change, but it is something that has to be done, like you said, in a delicate way to try to help people explore that without being super judgmental, to make them run the other way too.
Right, that's
Well,
right.
we
What's the
It's
all
name of the book? What's the name of the book? The World Peace Diet?
yep, that's it. Hmm.
Okay.
it's the most intellectually valid expose of what goes on. He's also a very sweet guy. You spent some time with him, and he's also quite an accomplished composer and pianist.
Really?
And he writes about also what Light was just saying about the people in the slaughterhouses. So everybody who's eating meat and dairy and using all these products and couldn't themselves imagine actually doing that, having to slit an animal's throat and skin them and rip them apart and all of that stuff that they do in these places. um, Somebody has to do it. If everybody wants that and wants to buy it, we're asking somebody to do that. And
That's
so
a
there's a
great
whole
point.
sector of society that kind of has had this contracted out to them, like, okay, you take this spiritual burden for everybody, right? You be burdened by this. We don't want
Yeah.
to be. We want to go about our lives and just take it out of the fridge, buy it at the supermarket. You guys take the job of actually doing the killing for us. So he talks about those people as being another victimized group of this whole system. It victimizes human beings in that way as well. And they often go home and beat their wives because there's a lot of domestic violence that goes on with slaughterhouse workers, alcoholism, domestic violence, because they're suffering from PTSD, right? They've
Yeah.
got
Because they're just, why else would you punch a cow in the head?
exactly.
You know what I mean?
They're
A
taking it
helpless
out on
cow.
them. They're taking it out on them because they're so miserable themselves. And that's a lot of, there was a woman who wrote an article that we published on our website. I forget the name about it now, but it's about the human cost, people who are working in these slaughterhouses, which, by the way, I mean, some of the health things that those people go through are just absolutely horrendous,
I
between
remember during
accidents and
COVID.
yeah, that brought it to the surface in a whole other way too. But this woman had worked on an animal farm, and she was saying actually many animal farms. She became a vegan, but she had a history of being in all different size farms, and she was saying she saw it everywhere because the workers are so oppressed and they're so miserable in that situation that they take it out on the animals because it's the only person weaker than themselves that they can, so they're kicking them and they're beating them and they're shoving them into the thing. And it's not, they wouldn't be bad people either if you took them out of that situation, if you gave them a different opportunity. They're not
Yeah.
bad people. It's just that this whole system turns us into bad people because it's a bad
Yeah.
practice. So it makes a distortion of who we are.
And it
Yeah.
distorts the information to people. It educates them in the wrong way to continue to have that narrative kind of supported, by saying this is in our food guidelines that you need, well, it did change to protein, I believe, not too long ago. I think the physicians committee did have them change it to protein instead of meat, but it's terrible that all of that is going on. I think that's what makes us all want to do something every day we get up to try to put this information out there, because we see what's happening in the world and we see the misinformation, and that I believe too, it's like against the law. They won't really let people in these slaughterhouses, right?
Mm.
Like, to
Because they know what's going on in there. Hey, Jen, did you think about Diane Keaton when she was talking about the people not wanting to pay attention to what's going on? I just want the meat in the grocery store.
right, like there's a movie where
We were
she
thinking
says,
about Baby Boom, where she says, I just want to turn on the faucet and have water. I don't want to know where it's coming from.
Mm. People are
It's the same
overwhelmed.
thing.
People are.
Yeah.
This is a hard time for people to take in that information because there's so many threats
Yeah.
coming from every side. It's hard for people to be conscious. And that's why, like you were saying, it's so important that we we be gentle in our approach. We have to be real and honest, but we don't want to be, making people feel judged or it's just guilty. It doesn't do any good. Ashamed. We have to find the way of, making it available to people and inviting them to join us in this new way of seeing. That's
Yeah. Can't be mad at them for being ignorant because a
Right.
lot of people just don't
don't
know. They
know.
don't.
That's right.
We all were.
They don't know.
We
We
all,
all
we
were.
all were. Yep. I was definitely there. And I'm like, it's definitely one of the things that inspires me to want to talk to you guys and want to do this and want to put things out, because if I could have just maybe came across something earlier, and figured this out sooner, it would have been great. So if I can do that for someone else, then, and I appreciate you coming on here and telling your story and your journey. It's really special to hear the way that things have evolved over time, and the fact that I'll still say that you invented veganism. I'll give you the credit. But it's so nice that you took that and even took it to another level, creating an organization, and you know and you have a book,
And a whole
right?
community.
I believe that I saw on your website.
Everyone who becomes vegan invents it, really.
Right.
Mm,
Can
that's right.
we, is there a way to donate? Is that to your
Yes.
organization? And I read or heard that you have moved a lot of it to online. Like, do you still have the property, or I believe you started a restaurant, right? I'm getting ahead of myself.
Called the vegan.
Yeah, well, again, nobody ever heard of the word. So our first dog we named Vegan. Yeah, well, people would
Saw
ask,
that on the
what does
story.
vegan mean? We'd give them the spiel. And what was it?
The restaurants.
The restaurant we called the Vegan, which, by the way, another little anecdote. You know how McDonald's has a billion, like they're proud of it. A billion served over the door. We had a million
Yeah.
saved
Oh,
over
I
our door.
love that. Oh,
Nice.
very catchy and
And
so
we would
true.
everything we had was to explain what veganism is, including the name of the store. But we had, what do you call it? The pads they put on the table, like
Placemats.
placemats, and they'd have explanations from great names in history like Da Vinci and Tolstoy. Anybody who said anything positive about not hurting animals, we put on those placemats and educated the
Nice.
people while they were eating. But our main approach, my mother was a chef. So our main approach when we began, the food that we did get that was vegan was terribly bland, so bland that nobody would change their diet for that. So we became, in the movement, we became the food people. Every Thanksgiving in Florida, when we lived in Florida, we'd have every vegan in Florida that we could get a hold of. Maybe back then it was 70, 75 people. I don't know what it is today, but I'm sure it's a lot more than that. And we'd have them
Yeah.
for a vegan Thanksgiving meal. It was a wonderful occasion.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
That
so
is
the food at the restaurant, and actually even way back in the beginning, 1981, Gelatin World started as an organization when they published the very first full-length vegan cookbook in the United States. So that's, what is that now?
Wow.
42 years
couldn't
ago.
say vegan, by the way,
They had to say pure vegetarian
because
because
nobody knew what
what
vegan meant.
But
you
so they
know,
did the cookbook for people who love animals. Originally, they called it the cookbook for people who really love animals.
Underlined, really love animals. The publisher didn't think we should go with
They
that.
thought that was a bit much, so they turned it to the cookbook for people who love animals. It's still available. It's sold over 100,000 copies. It's in its
Wow.
ninth edition. People can find it on our website, and then also the second cookbook, which kind of grew out of the restaurant, published in 2000, is called Incredibly Delicious Recipes for a New Paradigm. So we have both of those on our website for sale. The books are really, we really try to, you were asking about donating, Jen, and I was just going to say that, yes, donations are possible to do that on our website. Everything we do costs money, and we try really hard not to charge anything for it. We really feel like we want people to have access to this information no matter their financial circumstances. So we don't like to, make money off educating people about veganism. We just want to make it free. But our books, of course, cost money to print, so that we do sell those. But we do also have a downloadable ebook called Vegan FAQ, Demystifying
I love
Veganism with
that.
20 Simple Questions. So that can be found on our website. People can download it for free, and it's designed to help people understand what veganism really means, because a lot of people have heard the word, but they're kind of confused about, is it a health food diet kind of thing? And so we explain what it really means from an ethical perspective, and then just answer some of the questions that we've heard, many times over the years, to try to give people make it approachable for people, make it accessible to people.
Two important things we did. One, we flew banners, those planes that fly a banner behind them.
Mhm.
We were in Florida when they had the spring break and all the college kids were there. We flew a banner. Well, one was over Thanksgiving. It said, "Thanksgiving is murder on turkeys." And the other was, "Stop eating animals.
Give animals a spring
Give
break.
animals a spring break." And then my wife and I would go around like we were reporters and go around to the kids and ask them what they felt about it. You never know the outcome, at least to this point, you don't know. But I'm sure even if it moved one person in that crowd to be vegan. The other thing we did is we had two major celebrity banquets. Most of the names the young people wouldn't know, but some of them like
I remember River Phoenix.
Casey
Yeah.
Kasem.
Casey
exactly.
Kasem.
I heard about
Sidney
this.
Poitier
Well,
was there.
the
Daniel
Wow.
Phoenixes,
Nice.
the Phoenixes are my nephews.
Are they?
Yeah, their mother is my wife's sister. Hart Phoenix is my wife's sister.
Wow.
That is
No way.
so cool.
So that was why River was involved in the banquet, the celebrity banquet.
In the
back then,
banquet,
and
yeah,
helped to
I
get other
heard-
celebrities to come. And
We had Sidney Poitier, what a beautiful man, what a beautiful family. God, they stepped right out of royalty. The daughters and the wife must have been 6 feet tall, just beautiful people. And we were hoping to influence people who are an influence like Joaquin, and we're an influence to other people. We tried to get John Candy. I don't know if you remember John Candy, obese.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were hoping he would come and he would lose 100 pounds, which was possible. We had somebody that
You might have
lost.
saved his life.
Exactly. And then he would go and influence other people. Anyway, he didn't come. And shortly thereafter, he passed away. But that was our hope, was to influence people. Who else did we have? We had Sheena Easton and Alan
Drew
Thicke.
Barrymore.
Oh, wow.
Drew Barrymore was
Drew Barrymore. I love Drew Barrymore.
Yes.
Alan Thicke. I remember Alan Thicke. Yeah.
that's the other Thicke's father.
Yeah.
We had about 35 celebrities. As I say, most of them wouldn't be known now, but they were famous then.
And that was the first time they had ever heard of this idea of pure vegetarian food. It wasn't like now where celebrities are all like doing it as a trend and, they do it to lose weight or they do it for a cleanse or whatever, follow a vegan diet. But this was back when nobody knew, and they certainly didn't know that the food could be good. Back then, vegetarian food was not considered to be like delicious or, that it could be like the food people are familiar with. So we have some old video from that time and they're all like cleaning off their plate, like just eating every last scrap off the plate.
Who was the first man that came? He's still acting.
You're asking me. I wasn't even there. He's asking me to tell who was the first one there. I don't know.
Oh, that's great. I wish I would have been the first one there. It sounds like some good food.
Well, we had 21 we had tents, these very fancy tents. We paid for everything, including valet parking. Well, we wanted to go first class because we were dealing with so-called first class people. And we didn't want to make any errors. So everything was paid for. And we had 21 in these tents, 21 very fancy tents with Chinese food, Italian food, Jewish, all kinds of different ethnic foods. And believe me, we had so much food that when it was over, we had so much food left over. We filled Steven Spielberg's freezer. These people had so much money, they just say, "Fill my freezer." They never said, "How much will that be?" Just
Right.
And we had a lot of famous people doing that.
Barbara Streisand wasn't there, was she?
Who?
No, that would have been something. Barbara Streisand.
Barbara Streisand.
No.
I'm a Streisand fanatic.
No, I think we called. Well, we used River and Casey to get the numbers and call people. But Barbara's not someone who came. No.
That
That
was
is
how
it.
so after doing the banquet, they were invited by different people to do a restaurant in LA, and they were saying, we'll set you up, you'll have we'll make it all work for you. And but they felt there was no way they could live in LA, because gentle welders
Right.
are really more country people, not city people.
Right.
So but they decided to compromise by opening a restaurant on Maui, and that was how the restaurant began. It kind of grew out of that, the success of the celebrity banquets.
Oh, that is
Um,
neat.
That
and
is amazing.
It's so powerful to give people good food
that's
because
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover. That's the
Oh,
name
oh,
of it.
Danny
Danny
Glover.
Glover.
Right,
He was
right,
the
right.
first. He was the first one. We met him at a vegan restaurant in L.A. And my wife went over and asked him to come, and he said yes. We figured, oh yeah, right. And he was the first one there. Cleaned up his
Oh,
plate. We have
neat.
a video of him cleaning up his plate. Plus, the food was delicious. There was no question about it.
Wow.
You have to
And
be
you said it
vegan.
was from all ethnic backgrounds, but all of it was vegan versions of Chinese food. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
wow,
That
that
is
sounds
neat.
absolutely amazing.
That is
How long
like
has it been since Sun transform? I like to say transform because I don't believe in death. So
I like that, transformed. It's 4 years this year.
oh, okay. I'm
I
so
knew it
I
had to
sorry.
want
be
to
recent.
interject this point, by the way, because the son was, of course, like me, a 50-year vegan at the time. As far as we know, we took 1 million tests, and I can't be sure about it, but the only thing that was out of whack was glyphosate.
You guys know what that
You
is?
know,
Roundup,
Roundup,
Monsanto's product, Roundup.
Monsanto's.
They spray it
Oh,
on everything.
yes.
Everything that's
Okay. The
Yeah.
basically
chemical.
So
it's
her
chemical.
count was way out. That's the only thing we could attribute it to, because we don't use Roundup, and of course she ate vegan like I did for 50 years at the time. Anyway,
For
She
us, it
got
was
cancer from Roundup.
that's what we believe. And, well,
Wow.
that's
it's a cancer causing chemical.
yeah, right.
And
That's
Yeah.
what I remember seeing the commercials about that.
right. So people can, get involved in a lawsuit if they actually sprayed Roundup as part of their job. You can sue Monsanto because people are dying from cancer, but they spray it on all our food. It's on basically everything. And since that, we've been much more strict about eating everything organic. But of course,
Yeah. You
that's
don't know for
expensive,
sure, too,
and
even
even with
then.
that, that's right, because it's everywhere. So it's another thing that's kind of um, you know one of the ways in which these huge industries are making life on Earth hellish for everybody else. They shouldn't have the right to do that. They shouldn't be poisoning our planet like that and able to just get away with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, it's so like swept under the rug, as they say, and it's a shame that you do everything in your power to be healthy, and then you're
Right.
faced with things beyond your, control like that. But like you said, we can only do what we can and be as, conscious as we can. And I love the like Dawn was saying, the spirit that she had. And I remember one thing she mentioned was, she said, I think in one of the videos everybody had vegan in them. It doesn't matter how large or how
There's a
small, but
vegan in
everyone's
everybody.
got a vegan in everybody. So I thought that was really
Exactly.
cool.
that's
And I
where
think she's great.
the tagline for our website came from. That she came up with that, gentle world for the vegan and everyone.
I love it.
Nice.
Um,
That's great.
and
And
that's how she spoke to everybody. When anybody would come to our center and she had the chance to engage with them, she just spoke to them as if there's a vegan in there and I'm going to bring it out.
yeah,
And so we're so grateful that we have the recordings of her, so people
yes.
like you and
Yeah.
your listeners and other people can um,
Get to know who she
experience
was.
her. Yeah, get to
Yeah.
know who she was and learn her story, because it is, it's remarkable that they became vegan in this time when it just barely existed, and it wasn't like they heard about it from somebody and
Right.
realized it. It was just one step at a time, very pure, just kind of encountering the truth of each one of these things. Oh, that's what it looks like for an animal when you hit them over the head with a sledgehammer. All of a sudden, imagine they were in a movie theater, so it was huge on this huge screen, larger than life, that they were seeing that. And somehow it was just I mean, it's amazing though, because you were in the movie theater with everybody else, and
Yeah,
it wasn't
I
like,
don't think anybody else became a vegan. It's actually it's that mother cow that made us vegan.
Mhm.
The bellowing of the mother cow.
It can
And
definitely have that evolution to become
It can have that
vegetarian
effect.
and then vegan, because I think it's still another thing of education. People think, "Oh, I'm not eating the animal," and then
right.
you see so much other exploitation. But like you said, that's just it's amazing. I know what I deal with now, being so different from the normal population. That you had that that wisdom and that really strength to be able to hold your truth no matter what happened, even with people with not having the food available, even that would be tasty, and you kind of invented or came up with food to offer people, because people aren't just going to try it themselves if they're not bought in. So trying the food lets them know, hey, I can do this. So I love that you started the restaurant too.
That was our purpose. And in the meantime, we ate well.
Yeah, that's right.
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 It wasn't all altruistic. We ate the
Right.
food.
You are a very beautiful couple. I love seeing the pictures of you guys just walking around the just sitting there in the chairs with each other and just walking around with each other. That was just, you're a beautiful couple. And you still
Thank
are,
you.
because she's still with you. So
Yes, no, she definitely is. I love this opportunity to be able to sit on my rear end and continue to further the cause, because COVID has really put a bit of a stop on our visitor program,
yeah,
because they're all coming off a plane, so it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
That's a
And
whole other discussion. COVID.
yeah,
Hey,
But that's why we
yeah,
like doing this. Each one of you guys who has your own show, it's like a portal for us to be able to reach people who wouldn't necessarily find us another way. So, it's such a great opportunity for us, because you just never know who might be listening and be inspired by what we're saying.
absolutely.
definitely.
Oh,
Well, you've definitely inspired me for sure.
and I just wanted to
Absolutely.
say too, because we were talking about how, the mother cow, the bellowing of the mother cow, and how, this is for many people what awakens them to the truth of dairy, that it's to take out vegetarianism further and towards these other, uses of animals. And it's not just the way these animals suffer throughout their lives when they're being abused for dairy products, or in the case of chickens, eggs, or any of these uses, sheep for their wool. There's only a certain period of time that a cow is what the industry considers productive, right? So she can have so many babies and keep giving milk, but at a certain point, she's past that age of being able to do that, especially after having been drained and drained and drained and drained cycle after cycle. At that point, they don't put her out to pasture and let her retire. They don't let her just
Right.
have a peaceful end to her life. She goes to the slaughterhouse at that point, and she becomes meat that people eat for hamburgers
right.
or whatever else. The same goes for a sheep making wool. I mean, they shear the sheep for a couple of years, but after that, the wool quality declines. So people who are using wool and think, well, it doesn't hurt it doesn't kill the sheep to use the wool. They just shear them and they stay alive. To a point, that's true. I mean, that's ignoring even all the, horrendous things that are part of that sheep's life while it is being used for wool. But at a certain point, that sheep goes off to the slaughterhouse, gets turned into meat. So it's all connected.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's not like you can separate one thing from another. This whole animal industry, the whole thing, it's a trade in living beings. And
Mhm.
it's wrong through and through. The entire thing is rotten to the core. And that's why those of us of conscience, it's so empowering when we reach that point, like you were describing, of, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want
Yeah.
to have anything to do with that. If it has any ties to that industry at all, no thanks.
yeah,
Not for me.
I want to add a word for the dogs that we haven't mentioned. The beagles, the Army uses beagles to shoot them, and then test with the new medicines. They actually shoot them. So, of course, one of my favorite beings in all the world are dogs. In
Mhm.
fact, I think if there's any angels on this planet, it's dogs. I think someday they're going to talk. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen
I'd
that.
talk back. I wouldn't run. I would definitely talk back. My first
You
Yeah.
question would be, how'd you learn how to talk?
Did you see the video where the man taught a dog 300 English words? Like,
No.
No.
oh, you should watch that. Anyway, he put 100 stuffed animals in the bedroom. And in the living room, he'd say to the dog, get the dinosaur, get the pig, get the horse, get the cow. And the dog would get up, go in, and bring out the dinosaur and the pig and the cow.
Wow, so
No
smart.
way. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look at that.
That's
I'm gonna
that's
look at
more
that as
words.
soon as we're
That's more
done.
words than a human toddler has.
right.
It's sometimes more words than a human adult has.
People think,
Definitely.
people think of dogs differently, right? They compartmentalize. These are the animals we eat. These are the animals we don't eat. These are the ones who we keep, like you said, as pets. So people have a bit more love for dogs, let's say, a bit more compassion for dogs. Some people, not all people, but it's the same thing. We neglect to realize that they're caught up in the same system.
Yes.
These pet stores that breed dogs and cats and sell them to people. It's all the same thing of they're objectifying these animals, they're turning them into commodities, they're turning them into resources. So what happens at the other side of that is that either people buy them from the stores and then realize, oh, we didn't really want them, we can't really take care of them. They end up back at the shelter, they get killed.
Yeah.
Or they end up never the ones that never sell end up in the shelters and get killed. So even though we think that we have this higher awareness of dogs and cats, the truth is we have the same as a society, not as individuals, but as a
Mhm.
society, we have the same lack of regard for them because it's this whole thing that when animals are not human, we think of them as being of lesser importance. We think of their basic rights as being of lesser importance. So even though people think, well, at least we don't kill any dogs. Well, yeah, but we put them in laboratories and drip shit into their eyes and cut them open when they're alive, and like you
Right.
said, use them in military tests. I mean, we don't really, it's our whole attitude towards animals who are not human has to change, whichever species they are. We think we have
They're
such reverence for
beings.
elephants. No, we don't. There's like only a handful of elephants left on the planet because of what we
Right.
do, because we're destroying their habitat, because people take them for their tusks, and people hunt them for trophies. It's a speciesism. It's this whole bigotry against animals of other species, and it needs to be changed across the board.
Yeah, well,
Across the
it's
board.
also true of we animals that are different in one way or another. Either they speak a different language or a different color, that makes them lesser in those
In
in
people's
the same
perception.
same perception.
Right.
Yeah.
And there'll be no peace. There'll be no peace on all fronts as long as people kill to eat, to
Mhm.
sustain themselves. We'll never know peace if that goes on. So it's essential that people be vegan. I don't know of any other hope. As I began this interview, I don't know of any other hope for the planet
Yeah.
that would, with one push of a button, if that were possible. If they said to me, you can push a button and change people any way to make peace in the world, I can't think of a better way to make them vegan, to stop eating by killing and eat things that you watch grow. Oh, look at that. Look at that tree. We have an orange tree. It doesn't stop giving. It's
Mhm.
just you
Yeah.
pick it and it grows and you just have oranges forever.
And what a difference it is to eat and harvest food that way. At our property in New Zealand, where we have really beautiful orchards and vegetable gardens, we had a couple of times where we brought groups from the school, little children, 5, 6-year-olds, to come and pick from the gardens and pick
Oh,
fruit
that's
from the
great.
trees. And it's a beautiful experience. It's a lift to pick food from plants. You would
Yeah.
never take 5 or 6-year-old children into a slaughterhouse.
Right.
You would never want to expose them to that. So that tells us a lot right there
Exactly.
Right.
about
That's
Right.
where
what
we
we're
should
meant to
be.
be eating, what we're
Mhm.
designed to be eating. We can tell from the way we feel about, seeing that happen. So,
Children they already know this stuff that we've all, in the beginning, like, um, there's so many kids that like the experiment or whatever the little saying was, he wants to play with the rabbit and eat the apple, not the other
Right,
way
not the other
around.
way around.
It's like it's so we're all like that inside,
Right.
that's why
It's innate.
and
It
you
is.
mentioned
It's innate.
something earlier too. I wonder if you could talk on that because I know a little bit, but how it relates to world hunger as well. Is it that the animals,
Mm.
the so few animals that they're feeding, all of this, um, so few animals that they're feeding are like taking up so much of the grain and things like that?
Yeah, we have an article on our website about it that kind of explains it in detail. But
Okay.
the basic notion is that an animal, in order to grow to slaughter weight, it's like 2 years old. They're killed basically as children, but as babies. But it takes about 2 years to get an animal to slaughter weight, and that means that for 2 years they're eating grain, and it's not like that just they grow from that, but they also metabolize that and poop it out and all of that. So it's tremendously wasteful. The amount of grain that goes into an animal, the pounds of grain that go into an animal to turn it into pounds of meat is way disproportionate. The amount of
Right.
protein, let's say, that you get from an animal compared to the protein that went into the animal is way, way less. So it's a really inefficient way of using the food that's available to us on this planet. So if all of the grain and everything else that they feed animals, they also take fish from the ocean, by the way, when they take billions of tons of fish a year, and a whole lot of it goes to feed cows in factory farms, which is really nuts because they're herbivorous animals. And of course, the fish in the ocean are dwindling down to tiny numbers at this point. So anyway, the cows use a lot more than they
Produce.
than gives back by the food industry. So what that means is that in these countries where people are starving, a lot of the time the grain is actually shipped from those countries. So they're growing grain in these third world countries, but instead of getting to eat it and feed it to their population, it's being
Right.
shipped out and feeding animals who are eaten in Western countries. So we're actually stealing from those countries. We're stealing from starving populations so that we can have hamburgers and these foods that people are just addicted to.
That
It's not
we
like we
don't
need
need.
it. We don't need it. Yeah. And in those countries, in the poorest countries, they're eating rice and beans, which if we all did that, we would have enough to
Had that
feed
today for lunch.
everyone. Having rice and beans, yeah. I love rice and beans.
I'm gonna be
Love
having
rice
that
and beans.
tonight. We'd be much healthier, and we would save so many animals, and spiritually. I mean, I wish there was a way we could have that button that you talk about. But the cool thing is, I think what you're doing, coming on here, what Angel is doing, and telling her story, and reaching other people. That's the only way that we can have this button because it's growing, like you said. So even
Yeah.
when you feel like you may not be doing a lot, you are doing something to each day. At least I try to do is something that I can at least touch one or two people. And if I touch no one, at least I feel better that I'm putting the information out there and someone may come across it. Maybe they're not
Yeah.
watching right now. Maybe it's not one of the people here on the live, but they might catch this video later on, and
Are you guys related?
No.
No.
I'm from New Zealand. I'm from the other side of the world. He's from New York.
Okay. Okay.
You could
I'm
probably
like, 'cause
tell
she
all
that.
looked like
vegans are
some.
related.
Yeah,
We're
all
all
being,
family.
that's
Right.
true.
Yes,
That
we
that
all
is
are related.
that's
We're all
Yeah.
connected.
that's
Yes.
quite true. That's really, I advise all new couples that if they became vegan, that's a greater tie than you're both from New York or you're both Christian, or it's a greater tie that keep them together, newly married or newly together people. It's a wonderful thing I know. I shared that with my wife for 50 years.
And when we
That's
meet
It's a
fellow
beautiful thing.
vegans, it is like an instant understanding because something that
Absolutely.
is one of the biggest things in our worldview we share in common. So even though, a lot of people experience when they become vegan that maybe they drop off in friendships from certain people because they see things differently. But it opens up a whole world of people with whom you can connect on a really deep level because we share that, very significant aspect of the way we see things.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful thing, the vegan community. It feels like this global family of people aspiring for a brighter future for everybody.
And thank God it's growing more and more every
Thank
day.
God it's growing.
Yes.
It's an idea whose time has come, and we know that there's nothing that can stop an idea whose time has come. Somebody
That's
said
it.
that.
Victor Hugo?
Victor Hugo, right.
That
But
is
it's
true.
true.
Do you think that I remember you had the timeline of 10 years. I feel like also it's growing like exponentially, like it's
Yeah.
taken off even in the last, like I was saying, 10 years. So we're definitely with social media and everything, we're reaching so many people. And do you have, I know I've seen on the videos people who have said that they've been helped and have, changed by hearing your messages. Like, do people reach out to you from the website and let you know that they've changed to becoming vegan based on your messages?
They do say that, actually. We had somebody write recently saying she had met you guys on Maui in the years that they had the restaurant. And she wrote and said, I think you're the people I met on Maui all those years ago. And she said, if so, you changed my perspective. I thought up until then I thought my vegetarianism was enough, but you opened my eyes. It was very gentle and compassionate approach that you had, but it really changed my life. So we do get those, and it's so funny that you just said that because I was just thinking, you were asking about people donating, and again, we do really welcome donations. We also really welcome that kind of feedback. So I was just going to say that if anybody hears this, even if it's 5 years from now, even if they stumble on your channel and hear it 5 years from now, if you hear this and it awakens something in you, let us know. It's always great to hear that. It
Definitely.
reminds us that what we're doing has that snowball effect too. Like you were saying, growing exponentially. It's like we put out ripples, we hope, through doing a video like this. And so it's great that you guys are doing that because each time you do a video, it goes on there, it's in the permanent record, and anybody can find it at any time. You just don't know whose life it might change, and
Right.
that person might go on to be an activist themselves.
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
this is how we change the collective consciousness.
I know so many people, and me included. I actually watched a raw food documentary called Raw Food. It had Woody Harrelson in it. He was talking about how much energy he had, and literally, it was that night I said, "You know what? I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna try to eat raw food for a couple of days." And then I went on to a week, and then I ended up going 6 months on just
Really.
raw food, and then I incorporated rice and beans and back cooked food in, and it was like, only because I had lost too much weight, I really loved the way that it made
Makes
me
you
feel. And
feel.
I still eat a lot of raw food, but it's like that one documentary changed just from, I think I'll try this to get some energy and lower my blood pressure, lose some weight, to becoming something that had let me know, exposed me from being in the vegan groups, what was out there, what was happening to animals. I had no idea about any of this when I first started. So it's just like you said, it's an evolution. It becomes part of your heart, not just a diet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's that thing everybody talks about doing something bigger than yourself. In your life, you need to do something that's bigger than your own self ego and everything that's you,
Right.
you, you. Well, this is it. Be a vegan.
Mm.
That's doing something bigger than yourself, and
And
it's
you're
saving
helping on
every
so
animal on
many
this
levels.
planet.
Yeah, it can really give people, people who are struggling with either feeling hopeless during this time, which, there's a lot of reasons for despair, no doubt
Hmm.
about it. People who don't have confidence, people who are lacking in self-esteem. It's a great, it's a great tool
Antidepressant.
for that, antidepressant, because all of a sudden you have something to feel hopeful about. You have something to
Yeah.
feel like change is possible. If it could change me, anybody could change. And if enough people change, then the
Right.
whole world will change. It gives us this freedom wanting to wanting to
I
join
love
in.
it. I can see it. He's like, okay, it might be,
Hey,
is it time
freedom.
for his dinner?
There you
He's so
are.
cute. Oh my
Hey.
goodness.
So
Hi.
she was
Yeah, we don't have beds anymore. They took them over.
Right.
she was just minutes from
Wow.
being
Actually,
put
15
to
minutes from
sleep.
being killed.
Oh no.
She looks a little bit like Kisses.
Kisses. You saw the Kisses article? Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Wow.
looked at the video.
Oh wow. You've been really
That's what
from the video. Right, right, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kisses was tiny, though,
Compared to
compared
freedom.
to
Yeah.
we call
Oh,
her Freedom
I love the
for
name.
obvious reasons.
And speaking of
Yeah.
that, that's what you really literally feel. I think if anybody's listening, definitely comment if anything we've said has moved you or made you at least look into it more. But you feel a freedom when you figure this all out, that you're not being, basically led to do what everybody else is doing, and you have something, like you said, bigger than yourself.
Yes, it is a sense of freedom. And it's also a sense of freedom when you liberate yourself from the excuses that we all make, right? Because I know
Yes.
we were saying earlier, there's a lot of just unconsciousness and ignorance, and without a doubt, everybody has to learn this before they know it. But I know for me personally, I had a long period of making excuses. I did know. I did know. And I took steps in the right direction, but I was holding myself back for whatever reason. I don't know what, just lack of spiritual awareness, I guess.
Hmm.
And it took Sun, giving me a jolt in that seminar that I was talking about, where she described just wanting to break free from any involvement with the animal industry at all. But for a while, I kind of had this wavering thing where I would allow myself, a little leeway in the vegan, my standards, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't realize that when I finally broke through that and just said, okay, this is it. I'm vegan. That's it. I know this is for the rest of my life. I have decided to do this. It was an epiphany, and what a liberation, just to be. Now I wasn't back and forth. I wasn't trying to justify things internally. I didn't have to explain it to myself. There's a lot of energy that goes into, making excuses for behavior that we know doesn't really sit right with our conscience.
Yeah.
It's kind of this inner struggle
Definitely.
that people don't realize. If they can get above that, break free, they'll have a whole lot more energy and confidence and self-esteem and all of that just from getting to that next level of getting above that.
Just from the food you're putting in your body.
Son wrote an essay called "Let Conscience Be Your God," which that's very profound. That is the God within us. Is our
Hmm.
conscience.
Yeah.
Always tells us what's right and wrong if we're sane.
It's a really profound essay. And I have to say that when she wrote it and we published it, I loved it, but I came back to it later and I came back to it later, and it just kept deepening and deepening for me. And the last time I read it, it was after she had passed. So I was really sorry that I didn't get the chance to let her know how much more I was recognizing in what she had put down, because it was really a work of genius. But I definitely recommend it to everybody. Take the time to really read it carefully, because it's a masterpiece, I think, of recognizing, if we all let our conscience be our God, this world would be absolutely transformed.
Much better place. Jen, you're a writer too. That's another thing you guys have in common.
Well, if I could only be half as of the person. I mean, I'm just so impressed with you guys and Gentle World. Like, it really, just hearing your interview was one thing, but once I really got into it and we just, delved into it, it's really a special thing that you've done.
Thank you.
Is it on, and is her essay on the website?
It is. Yep.
Cool. We'll
Okay.
And you can
definitely
find
have.
all of her writing and Light's writing on our website, on the About Us page. There's a section about Light and Sun and their story, and we have some videos, and we also have everything that we've published on our site from the two of them in one place right
I
Sunlight.
love.
Ah, I just got it. Sunlight.
there.
I just also read the one that you said, the FAQ, and that is so good if you're just now learning about this or you don't even know what the difference between vegan and vegetarian is. The way that that's written is so knowledgeable and really breaks it down from the root of, things that people want to know or need to know that we sometimes will just anticipate that everybody knows.
Mm.
And I think I love the way that was written as well, and I can't wait to check out the essay. Buddha 1000, one of our listeners said, "Oh, cute doggy, isn't he?"
Wait a minute, we've got that in sunlight and dawn.
That's
Nice.
right. An
They go
angel,
together.
right?
Dawn's
um,
a beautiful name, and
Wow.
it's actually a name that we use here. We just believe in using our names to help us in our spiritual evolution, right? We figure,
mhm.
why
I
not?
am literally named after that time of day. I think when I was in the womb, I would always kick or whatever at that time. And to this day, there's no time like dawn for me. I like to get up. I like to see from the time I was a small child.
Wow,
I would get up, I would watch the sun or watch the sky evolve and go from like that deep red into the blue,
wow,
and I've always loved it. And I realized what well I think also I've got Native American heritage as well, so I think that is why I tend to be a lot more on the spiritual side. And I love the fact that my dad named me Dawn because
beautiful.
he knew that that was my favorite time of day then, and is, and always will be.
Yeah,
So I'm named after it, so I love
I
it.
That's
love that.
interesting because that was partially the reason why we did these names, change names. What you were saying, kind of, we realized it's something you get called more than anything else in your life is your name, and
Yeah.
they used to have meaning. If somebody was Stanley, for example, it meant LEA, a stone meadow. That was the meaning, and back then they knew what it meant. But it's fallen out now; it's just the syllables. So we decided
Yeah.
that we should name ourselves something that inspires us to move ahead. So we would call
Yeah.
somebody who was a little heavy-handed, let's say doe or deer, and somebody who was weak, we would call
Oak
oak, for example. Yeah, somebody who needed a little more
or
confidence
mountain.
and mountain.
Oomph.
Anyway, it
That's
worked,
neat.
so we continued it.
And that's so beautiful with the name dawn because it's the time of day, but it's also that time of transformation where you see the darkness turn to light. So every
Yes.
New
day,
beginnings.
yeah, every day it's a new beginning, and every day it's an opportunity to feel hopeful.
Reinvent.
It's a
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
it's a
reinvent.
beginning.
Reinvent yourself. I'm always reinventing myself
Yes.
every
I
day.
think we all
And
are
every
in
I
this
love each day
evolution.
as a new day. Yeah.
Like the vegan.
Isn't it great
And
that
hope.
we know that we can do that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't yet realize that you can actually change yourself. We can become someone new because we want to be, not because someone's saying you need to be different or whatever, but no, because we're not happy with our current situation. We want to change our perception and see things differently. There was a great documentary called The Witness, which is about a man who went from being completely apathetic towards animals to becoming a vegan activist. And I can't remember where he said he heard it, but he had heard this expression that a miracle is a change in perception.
Wow.
And that was kind of the theme for the whole movie because that had been for him. He'd gone from just not caring about animals at all, not even thinking about animals, to
Right.
recognizing that they were individuals with feelings and preferences and desires and fears and didn't want to be killed and all of that. So the documentary is about his inner transformation. And I really think that is true, for our lives. That's what changes our lives the most, is changing our inner lives,
Hmm.
that reinvention of ourselves and knowing that we have that power, that we have that capability. Um, that's just, I would say, one of the most important things in life altogether, because anything's possible for us in that
And see,
situation.
and people just don't appreciate, because here's the thing, you do it regardless of whether you're doing it on purpose or not.
Hmm.
Every
Mm,
day you wake up, you are a new person, because think
mm,
about it. The past is gone. Yesterday is gone. You are not who you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that, and they think that they're stuck in these ruts and they can't change. Well, guess what? You've already changed, because you're no longer who you were yesterday.
Yep.
All you have to do is walk in this new you.
Yeah.
And anything you want to be, you can be from this point on, starting right now. Because really, all you have is now. There's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. All there is right now, this exact moment. And you can be anything you want to be. You will be who you want to be in this moment and keep having those
You
moments.
definitely have
Right.
to have that open mind to be able to hear things and let things in, overcoming all of the programming, because all of our minds at first probably fought this by saying, I don't want to believe that I was part of this industry or that I ever didn't know this. And you just have to kind of
Right.
let all that go and realize
Yeah.
that, now that you know, it's what you do next. Like you said, who are you now? So it's definitely, even when you first become vegan, it's not, or if you start plant-based or vegetarian, it's still, you're becoming someone new each thing you hear, or each little morsel that's put in there that makes you kind of become to this ultimate consciousness of, I don't want to do any harm.
Well, and I think too, what you were just saying about, people coming up against that. It's almost like a resistance that can come up when people feel, guilt and shame, and they're sorry, they're regretful and sorrowful about having been a part of that. Like if you see a video and you see the reality of what's going on in these industries, sometimes the reaction can be, you know, those things: guilt,
Hmm.
shame, and sometimes people just stop right there because they're not comfortable feeling that and they don't want to, so they prefer to put the blinders back on
Yeah.
and walk away and pretend they didn't see it, pretend they didn't feel it. Um, and I think that that's, sometimes people ask, what do you think? Why do people not do this? Is it because it's not very convenient? They can't get the food. They think they need it for health. Da 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 da. And I always think, I think it's that. I think that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
things, is that people are afraid to feel those feelings, and we need to help people to understand that we've all had to go through that, but the only way to actually transform it is to accept it for what it is,
That's it.
feel it, allow yourself to feel it, because that's what creates the transformation,
Yeah.
right?
Wow. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, we were just talking about this. So,
Yes, you were just talking about that. This is going to be the theme of our interview. We were just
I
talking about
know,
that.
right?
Yeah,
I should have changed
right.
the title.
That's something we talk about a
That is
lot
so
because it's
true.
like in order to make a
Can
change, you have to accept what
And I was
is,
talking to
you
someone,
know?
as soon as you, like, if you're on social media, a lot of times when you have this message and you want to let other people know that are on your, social media, you can post things and no one touches it. No one puts even a face that they're surprised, if you put something that goes on with animals and things, but they're there, because when you post something else, maybe a picture of your dog or cat. I was just talking with Marakita also about this, and Dawn and I have talked about this. You get crickets when you post something sometimes that will really open people up to the truth, and it's like you said, they just don't want to see it, or like, if I don't acknowledge it, it's not happening.
Right.
It's true. So I think, it's so
It's like
important to
maybe
get
if I
this
ignore it, it'll
information.
go away or it won't be real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's like, no, it's real. You saw it. And you can't run away from yourself. You can't unlearn something.
Hmm.
You can act differently, but you can't unlearn it. Once you've seen it, it's happening. And your subconscious eventually will come back up and remind you of it. So you can't run away from yourself.
right. Exactly. But yeah, people don't realize that if they just are willing to let that in, the other side
Yeah,
of that
stop
is where,
resisting it.
yeah, and at the other side is where all this beauty is, right? The beauty of freeing yourself from that, actually, and experiencing what it is when that then becomes your past. Because then we might feel sorrowful, we might feel regretful, but we freed ourselves from being complicit in it. Now we can kind of put it to rest. We lay it to rest in our past where it belongs. And then it transforms into, what can I do now to help others, awaken to this, and
Do that as well.
how do I
Yeah.
channel this into something that is, helping this vegan future to come about.
It's so funny too. We just saw a TV commercial the other day, and I won't say the name of the restaurant, but it used to entice me so much because pizza was my favorite thing. And I told Jen, I said, God, you know what I'm looking at with the cheese oozing? All I see is a bunch of mucus that I see a big pie of mucus with little round pieces of dead animal flesh on it.
Mhm.
It's so funny
Yeah.
how your perspective changes the longer you live
Yes.
in
Yes.
veganism. I
Yeah.
see a
Because you
steak,
think it.
instead of my mouth watering, I get disgusted. I'm
Right.
like, that's a
Right.
slab of flesh,
Right.
that they've put seasoning on, and it's just,
Right.
it's ugh.
And people think it
I look at
takes
it differently.
people think it takes willpower, that it's difficult, but that's the whole thing. What you're describing.
Initially,
That, yeah, because it takes some
when you first
relearning.
come
You have
off of
to.
it.
Yeah, but then that feeling that you're just describing takes over. It's not
Yes.
like you don't have to use willpower not to eat that steak or that pizza. You don't
Yeah.
have a desire for it.
I can sit
So
there and
that's
look
what
at it and be
people.
like, that's disgusting. That's flesh. That's dead flesh.
Right. So people
And that
don't
poor
realize that
animal.
that takes over. You don't need willpower anymore. It becomes easy instead of being difficult. It's easy because, we just don't want it. We just don't want
Absolutely.
it.
We never felt it was willpower. By the way, one of our favorite meals in the early years was peanuts and raisins. We used to buy another 10 can of peanuts, and in the car, we drove a lot. We didn't have a place to live. You puncture
Yeah.
that with the can opener, and that peanut smell envelops the whole inside of the car. Throw some raisins in there. We loved it. We still love peanuts.
It's like peanut butter and jelly, really.
Right. Peanut butter and
Raisins,
jelly. It's like
yes.
peanut butter and
I
jelly.
love raisins. I've just been eating a
In
lot of
its
them lately.
rawest form,
And you
unprocessed.
end up really
Right.
liking the food that you eat, even like to as simple as peanuts and raisins. People are like, how do you still get excited about that same? Because I'll eat almost the same thing every single evening. And I get all excited, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go like chop up my vegetables and things. And it's like, you just do. Like when you don't really think about the other way of eating, you get used to your way of eating, like you said.
It's our natural way of eating. It's what we actually were meant to eat.
And the fact that you
You know,
enjoyed the peanuts was, like you said, maybe more even to the fact that it wasn't something of what you were craving. It's this is what I should be, doing for the animals.
That's
And
what makes it taste so good.
there was never a doubt. We never doubted because we knew it was right. That's the big thing, is doing something that, and it's very rare to do something that is irrefutably right. That
especially
changes
when
your
no one
whole.
else is looking.
Right.
Yes, that's character, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
it definitely
definitely.
is. If you had to give any advice, or is there anything else you'd want to say right now? Like what would you say to the entire vegan movement or to the young people who are becoming vegan?
Well, for me, I would say take heart. Don't lose heart because it's still going on. It has really moved, and I've got this over 50-year perspective. It has moved forward a great, great deal on every level, from what I mentioned with the stamps and even the TV. They don't make fun of it. I used to make fun every time they mentioned vegan, they would make some joke about it. I see they don't even do that now. They have a dinner, and there's always some nephew or niece who says, I don't eat meat, and they don't make fun of them anymore. It's the whole world is, at least the United States, is changing. And there are countries that I forget which ones, I think in Scandinavia, that have actually made meatless days. But they don't. Anyway, my point is to young people and people who've just begun, take heart. It's happening, and it can't go backwards. It can only go forward. I know many kids, including the Phoenix grandchildren, who have never touched meat or dairy in their, little kids now, have never touched it in their lives. And of course, Joaquin's own son will never, never, ever put that parts of another animal that they love in there to eat. Just to take heart and have hope because it's happening. That's my message, to take heart.
Sure, you should.
Ah, the future is
I
vegan.
love
Yes.
it. Do you sell those?
No, I wish. I did see some online though. I think somebody is selling them.
I love
I
it.
think Keegan the
This was
vegan.
actually, he got this as a gift from Keegan the vegan, who is the co-creator of Cowspiracy.
Oh,
Do you guys
okay.
know that documentary?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So he
Cowspiracy,
came here
yeah.
to, yeah, he visited us here in Gentle World before Cowspiracy, before he was famous. We knew him before that, and he had a couple of these shirts, and he gave them to Light as a gift.
We knew he could write, though. I'll
You,
tell you that. He wrote a few things you could tell he could
you knew
write.
him in
Very
BC
talented
before
fellow.
Cowspiracy, right? I've got Dawn got me this shirt. It says "Vegan from my head, tomatoes to my toes." Yeah, because
Tomatoes,
I
that's a
love
good
puns, so it
one.
kind of played into it. I think, like you were saying, you naming the dog vegan, and like just like making people open up and question it is one of the things that sometimes I'll wear this shirt to the store and someone will just stop me and be like, "Oh, what is that?" Or you know what I mean, and it's good because it helps at least plant that little seed, and I can always get to talking about it and go on and on and on until they're ready to walk away from me. Or, online, if you post something and someone's questioning what it is, it's good to be able to have those little opening, conversations with people. At least they might not be immediately like, oh, okay, like seeing a documentary, but you can lead them to one of those things or at least lead them to question it. Marakita, welcome. She said, thank you for
Just,
everything you all are doing.
Oh, nice to see you,
just
Marikita.
their asking you what it means shows at least a little bit of interest.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's more than just approaching someone out of the blue. That they've come and asked you what it means, that's a little bit more hopeful for their changes.
They're opening up for sure.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I am like so thankful to have you guys here and joining us. And I just want to say I can't thank you enough for giving us your time and the energy and spirit that you bring. And again, I will have in the description we'll have all the links that you sent over to me. Is there any other closing thoughts here that you wanna say, Angel or Light?
Well,
Freedom's coming back in.
Oh, let's see. Freedom
the,
wants to say something.
the, the thanks are really are ours to you to give us this opportunity, especially as I said during this COVID time when we couldn't not able to interact with the people that we were before COVID. Uh, it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm learning all about the internet. I was just taught how you close it.
You can close the lid of the computer.
It is something else, I bet, from seeing that, like the people that you touched, and then now moving to more of an online experience. It is amazing what can happen with online, how things can grow, and I think that has a lot to do with, with each of us putting something out there, and then more people seeing it, and then them maybe sharing it. It's kind of, I think that's a big reason it's growing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's all
definitely.
like everybody's a little bit like in a sculpting, everybody's chiseling a little bit, and finally we'll get David going, the sculpting.
And to your point, Jen, about sometimes posting things online and not getting any response, I always think about, because in Cowspiracy, Kip, the narrator, the other co-creator, he's telling his story, and the whole thing started for him, so he says, when he read a friend's Facebook post.
Nice.
So that whole documentary grew out of him. He was an environmentalist. He was trying to do everything. He was about showers, recycling, cycling instead of driving, all of that stuff. And then he's looking at Facebook and something comes up in his feed about animal farming being the largest contributor to global warming. And he just clicked on that link, and all of a sudden, all that information opened up to him, and it motivated him to go on and create Cowspiracy,
Wow.
which then
Wow.
became, at the time, it was the biggest vegan documentary possibly ever in terms of how many people it reached. We were starting to notice people who came here for our visitor program, they had all heard of it. It was, one of the big reasons that people were coming to us was because they had watched Cowspiracy. They wanted to know more about how you do it and, really solidify their veganism. But that all started from somebody just sharing a post on Facebook. So you never know, even if you're not getting the feedback,
Hmm.
keep putting the information out there, because you never know, what kind
It'll
of,
click somewhere.
And they
yeah,
may not
and
be ready to say anything like you said, but they may, still, even if they did say something. I know Marakita is joining us, but I was saying earlier, I was telling him about our conversation about how people sometimes will not respond, or they'll respond in a negative way underneath the post, but still, either way, we're finding that it could reach someone,
yeah, and there's
and
always people who are not, they may not be commenting, but they're listening. They're
mhm.
listening to the
I,
comments, and
I
Absolutely.
I
don't
want,
comment on every post I see either, so it's true.
right, yeah,
yeah, I want to give a plug to Gary Urofsky, you mentioned. We took a survey with the young people who used to visit, and at that time, more of them had become vegan. And I hear in Israel, he really made a lot of people vegan.
oh yeah,
He kind of says it like it is without pulling any punches, and I guess
Yeah.
Yeah.
young people like that. Anyway, yes, he was very influential. That was the biggest change in Joaquin's movie. What's that?
Earthlings.
Earthlings. Those two were the biggest makers of change for the people who visited.
Yeah, Earthlings was the one that we would show to people when they came here. We had a series of them that we would show, but it was always like, well, when you're ready, watch Earthlings, because that's like the
Okay.
point of no return. If you can get through that and you're not a vegan, something is seriously wrong.
Right.
Because it goes through all the different aspects of exploitation, and just, it explains very clearly this idea of speciesism and what that is. And um, but it just shows the truth of what's going on. And that's
What
really,
what Yeah, Joaquin has always said that was his proudest moment, was
yeah,
narrating that film.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
I love that he does so much, to get the word out, because like you said, the more influential that people are, the more people, they can touch. And sometimes it can be something as big as that. Sometimes it can be something as little as, I don't know how many people ever saw that documentary that I saw, but it wasn't one of the big movies, but it still moved me. And like you said, it could even be a Facebook post. So we all just have to keep doing what we're doing, keep putting those planting seeds. That's right. She said planting seeds and allowing them to grow in their own time.
Actually.
Absolutely.
mhm,
Yeah.
That's
mhm.
it. And the metaphor to that is so
Even our comments are
excellent.
vegan.
Yes. I love it. We even have vegan comments, but I definitely think it can become something that you almost feel angry about, because things aren't changing fast enough or quick enough. And I love the fact that you bring that message that things are changing with every evolution. There's got to be people who are against the grain, and who are saying this isn't right and sticking with it, regardless of what kind of criticism or ridicule, and continuing to do the right thing. So I think it's bigger than us, so we have to do it.
Yeah, we went through the ridicule stage in the beginning. A lot of I lost pretty much all my friends, and I thought it would just take telling them that would they were my friends. How could they not? But anyway, it didn't work that way. So I got new friends.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's it. And some of those friends may have, who knows, came around and become vegan at some point. Who knows? And maybe not, but it is what it is. You have to look at it like that. We can't make everyone happy. I guess one of the things I had to learn later on, and some people will just kind of drift away from you when they don't like the path that you're on.
And they,
And good riddance.
I was going to say those exact words.
I love it. And that's so true about Gary Yourofsky too, because that's one of the reasons I know, Dawn, that you're a very direct person like that, and you don't necessarily need to all the time hear it sugar coated. So I'm like, it was the perfect,
Yeah,
speech to
right.
share with you. It's like,
Yeah,
just, I love when
it
he
worked.
says, I didn't, when people say, oh, why do you want to eat things that taste like meat? Or, why do people eat meat substitutes? Well, he was like, I didn't stop eating meat because I didn't like the taste. It's like, it's bigger than that. We can still use all the same flavorings that we use. It's just we're flavoring our beans. We might like the taste of garlic. It doesn't mean that we have to have it on meat.
Right.
Absolutely. Wow, this has been awesome.
I know,
This
this
has
has
been
been so
completely
nice. I almost
awesome.
wanna keep it going, but I know we all have to go and eat and sleep and do all kinds of, probably other
Where
things, but thank
where
you.
are you located?
We are on the East Coast in Ocean City, Maryland.
Okay.
So it's,
Well,
Well, if you ever get to the Big Island, make sure you come over for a good vegan meal.
we
I'm
definitely have
always
to.
telling her we need to move there. It's still part of the United States.
that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a big feature about it. It's
Mhm.
I would
it's
love to
foreign
move
to a
there.
point, but everybody speaks English and so forth and so on. It's a wonderful place to be. And when I look at the weather conditions and the other conditions on the mainland, I'm very grateful that we live here.
Oh, it seems like a beautiful place. I've always wanted to go there, so that might have to
You're
be
still
one of
in
the bucket
Maui?
lists.
No, we're on the Big Island now. Maui's gotten a little overcrowded. No, the Big Island,
Okay.
we love it here much better.
The island of
Nice.
What's the
Hawaii.
name of the Big Island?
It's called
The
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
It's called
Hawaii,
Hawaii.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Wow.
asked because I was wondering too. I
Right.
wanted to pretend I knew, but now it made sense afterwards. I need to study
Definitely
my
We
when it's
used to
time
geography.
to
have a
come here.
neighbor who lived under us for many years. She had lived there for about 5 years. She said she loved it when she was in the military. So, and that's when we first started talking about it. Me, I'm legally blind, so I'm on disability. I'm like, you know what? I can still get my check. Let's move.
Yeah, come to Hawaii. Well, you guys want to have us on another time? We could certainly do it again. This has been great fun.
Yes, I would love that. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for
Been a
Absolutely.
joining us.
wonderful
My show,
conversation.
unfortunately, isn't a health show. It's a review show of a television show. But I will still put your links to your website and all in my description of my videos because we always end up getting in some type of vegan conversation. We can't help it.
It happens,
So
right?
keep
When
it on
you
my
when
show.
you go when you're vegan, it's like
And
it
you guys
leads
are more
to
than
it.
welcome if you want to spin through and say something. Hey,
It's a,
we can change. It doesn't have to be fit in a nice, neat little
right. It's
package.
an it becomes an obligation
To
Definitely.
speak about it
to
whenever we
speak
can,
about it and
right?
to
It
turn.
does.
Yeah.
You have to. Anytime somebody is telling me, oh my God, I feel like crap today, or oh man, I can't, like the other day, the leader of our trading group was talking about how he's just been so under the weather and he hasn't been feeling up to par. And I'm like, well, I mean, I hate to sound like one of those people, but it is your diet. And then he talked about he had this one of these McDonald's sandwiches. He's like, sausage, egg, and cheese.
Oh,
I said,
great.
heart attack on a bun. That's all I'm saying. And I said, and I'm gonna let it go. Come on, it's like
Sometimes
you
I
can change that. You
talk
don't have to
about
feel that way.
my
Mhm.
own experience. Sometimes
I
it's
get
like
passionate about it. I'm like, you're because you're killing yourself. I hate to say it that way, but what you're eating, you're not supposed to be eating. That's why you feel the way you feel.
Right.
for so many different
And
reasons.
yeah,
It's such a like win-win situation. Like I
Every reason in the world.
it's like
and you
everything you
can't
can
beat
think
people
of.
down. So
Yeah, I like to speak from my own experiences, especially in a situation like
yeah,
that. I always post online, even, this is what happened to me when I went plant-based, or saw this video and learned this happened with cows. That way we can reach people by speaking from our own experience, but still getting it out there to them. So,
I
um,
tell people I'm gonna be 55. They say, "Oh my God, I don't believe it. You're gonna be what?"
I don't
And I'm
believe
like,
it.
I'm going to say that too.
Yeah,
there you go.
I don't
Yeah,
believe
or I
it.
No,
could say
really.
I'm going to
I
be
would have
100.
guessed, I don't know, early 30s,
30,
20?
35. I
Yeah.
get 30s all the
Yes.
time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like 20 years older than that. Go
Well,
vegan.
We
that's
met
great.
at a
Wow,
call
that's
center, and
amazing.
I'm
literally when
glad
I
you
met her,
mentioned that.
everybody was sharing their license, or was looking at her license, and I was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "They didn't believe how old I was."
I still get carded. They'll look at my license and look at me like 10 times like,
You're a great vegan
this
poster
isn't you.
child.
Yeah, it's me.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel literally biologically. And like, that's why I kept wiping the sweat and all, because I ran over. I was working out. And, and I'm like, oh, it's time. Jen's like, it's time. And I'm like, we got to go on. But, you can literally change yourself at the cellular level or keep yourself as young as you. I mean, really, the aging process even slows up when you're vegan. You guys look wonderful. I'm telling you, I'm watching the video of you and your wife. I'm like, look how vibrant they look.
Thank you.
It's
I'm
nice
like,
to hear.
it's because of how they eat and what they believe and how they live. It's like, it's a
Exactly.
beautiful thing.
You
It's a
think if I
beautiful
tell
thing.
people I'm going to be like 99, maybe they'll go vegan, right? I'll just go ahead and put a couple
Wow.
years on that,
And you thought I looked
right?
young.
Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, you guys look great. I just can always see that it's also like a glow around people who are
Yeah.
vegan because they're living in the right peacefulness. I really do believe. In addition to obviously all the vegetables have all that good stuff in them, but it's definitely
Don't forget the nuts and raisins.
yes.
Yes, definitely not.
And
That's funny you said that too, because Jen's been buying raisins a lot lately because she puts it in her oatmeal, and I've been stealing the little boxes of the sun-made raisins. I'm running there and I
that's where they all
take a
keep
couple of
going.
these, and then she had some cashews that were out of this world. These raw cashews, oh, they are so good.
Cashews and
I
raisins
love.
together, that's a nice combination too.
Yes,
That
And
sounds
yes,
good.
cashew
yes.
milk, try that blender milk with cashews. It's absolutely
Oh
delicious.
yeah, I'm gonna
The
definitely
Yeah.
next
try that.
we're gonna get another package of that this week. We're gonna get another pack. I think I'm gonna try that. We'll keep
Definitely.
you posted
Yeah, let
Well,
us know how it
on
goes.
how it turned out.
this has
Make a
been the
little
day I've
video.
learned about nut milks.
And throw it right there on TikTok and throw it everywhere. So what is it? You said we need a strainer. I'll order it on Amazon. They probably have them,
Yeah, they
right?
do. You don't need it for the cashew milk because it's so, they just break down really easily. But if you can get the
Okay.
strainer bag, you'll see that it takes it to another level. And certainly if you want to do
So
like,
it's called a strainer bag.
yeah, or a nut milk bag, right?
Okay.
It's basically
Okay.
like cheese. It's
Like
like
a cloth, right?
it's like a mug
Cheesecloth.
kind of thing. But definitely if you want to do like almond milk, which is a tougher nut, straining it is really a key. And the nut milk bag just makes it so smooth.
Okay.
It takes it to another level. But if you do it,
So
do
you're
a
you're
video.
grinding the nut with water and then just
Yeah.
putting all of that in the strainer and letting it just come through?
Yes, exactly.
That's so
And we do
cool.
have
Water only over the blades in the beginning, otherwise it'll just fly up
you just do enough to cover the nuts.
in the beginning.
So you
Okay.
put your nuts in and put in just enough water to cover the nuts because first you want to puree it.
Gotcha.
And then you add more water to turn it into a milk. But so you want to
Gotcha.
make sure that they grind down into that paste, not a paste, but a puree
Okay.
beforehand. And then you add more, cold water.
That is so interesting.
This is
And you
gonna
can
be
do it
amazing.
without straining, or you can put it just through an ordinary strainer. It's just that the nut milk bag takes it up a level because it makes it really super smooth.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
have some information on our website, and I can send you a link to an article about it that gives instructions. It's super simple, but it might be helpful
Yeah.
for people to refer to.
To look
And then
at
if
it
you
while
do
they're
it,
doing it.
make a little video of a nut milk
Oh,
demonstration.
J&J
Yeah.
video. That's what we do.
So I know you have the
Yeah.
website. Do you have any other ways that we can reach out? Is it email or we can reach out to you right from the website?
Yeah, the website has a contact us page.
Okay. Cool.
And there's also, of course, as you mentioned before, the donate page. I'm being told I have to say that more often because, it's expensive what we do. We do a lot of
Yes.
outreach, and it helps a lot when people do support our work. So there's a donate page there. There's a contact us page. You can sign up for our newsletter there. And then you can find our social media links. So we're on Facebook,
Okay,
Instagram,
great.
YouTube,
Awesome.
and that's all there on the website. and our ebook, of course, which people can download.
And gentleworld.org, right?
Yeah, gentleworld.org.
Thank you for joining. Deb said, I am loving this interview. Freedom indeed. As a vegan, I feel in balance on so many levels. My ethics are in line with my actions, and that is so wonderful. Yes, it is. Definitely. Thank you for your
Nice to
comment.
see you, Deb. She wrote a review of our ebook, actually, and if you go online to our web store and you click on the vegan FAQ, Deb wrote a very kind review for us. So it's nice to see you there, Deb.
She's a beautiful writer and can really captivate people with the message and artist. So I'm so happy that she came and listened in. Thank you for joining. And of course, Marikita and Buddha, thank you for joining in and just putting in your comments and being with us and for sharing this out. It's really been a special interview. I feel so good and inspired after this to wake up tomorrow and do the same thing and get as many people touched as possible. And gentleworld.org is the website. And I think for me, I love donating to organizations that are really like making a difference like this, because what you're doing can change the whole world. We're gonna help get
That's
that button pushed.
that's our that's our
Buddha,
hope.
Buddha, I will definitely see you tomorrow. Buddha. She comes to the
Yes,
90 Day
definitely.
Fiance
Like
reviews.
J&J Video Reacts, if you don't want to get out of the depths of what we talk about and want to just have some lighthearted talking about the TV show's drama. I love it. We'll be there. I'll be there. The
Yeah, we
very rare occasion I
Definitely.
don't talk about being vegan for a couple of minutes.
right. We at night we watched all those beautiful dog and animal where a rhinoceros is lying down with a sheep and a dog and a cat. As a kid, they fought like dogs and cats. That was an expression.
Right.
They've evolved. They've evolved against the common enemy. That's my belief. All
Hmm.
the animals,
Yeah.
from elephants to rhinoceroses, they all have a common enemy, and I'm sure you know who that is. I'm sorry to say.
Yes, I think so. Well, we're not.
It's not the vegans, though. We're the
Right.
opposite.
Right.
We're the
We're
Right.
trying
hope.
to help,
We're
but
the
it is
hope. We're
true
the
as a
hope of
whole.
the animal world.
Yeah.
We're the
We have
hope
to
of the
do it
whole
for them.
world, not just the animals, the people too.
It all starts there. It really does,
Definitely.
because there are times over the period of history, like you said, that we thought things were right that were absolutely not right, and up to and including our own journeys. So keep an open mind and realize what that violence is creating, and the sickness and violence, and it's just it's so much, but it's also a blessing to know that it is changing, and we're in the process of hopefully like the biggest movement. I do believe there will be a day when this is something where a kid's gonna say, "Can you believe there's a time when people ate meat?"
Mhm.
So I really
Mhm.
Right,
think it'll
right.
happen. I don't know if I'll be here to see it, but I hope I'm here to see some of it.
I think,
You'll be here.
yeah, you'll be here, and I think we're all seeing some of it.
Yeah.
That is
Huge
true.
changes.
That is true. Well, thank you guys so much.
Okay,
Thank
it's hard
you.
to part.
I know. I don't want to
Parting
leave.
is
It's like
such sweet sorrow.
I
have
know.
a great evening, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank
And
you.
share
Thanks,
this
guys.
video, and please go to gentleworld.org and check out all the resources and make a donation if you're able to, or at least give them some input and feedback. And definitely, you know, just and the ebook, everything is so good. I can't stop talking about it, but I know I have to go because I could talk forever. Have a good evening. Thank you so much to you
Guys, have a
both.
Thank
great
you.
evening. It was
Thank
wonderful to
you.
meet you
Thank
both.
you.
Thank you.
I thought I hit the right button.
Is it still streaming?
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Well, if you need my technical help, just give a call.
Here we go.